All right, happy Thursday. How's everyone doing? Love to hear it. Does it seem a little dim in here? Do you mind, or do you want the lights on? I think that light switch might turn it on. Do you mind? Nope. Is that better? That's better. There we go. Okay, technical issues from the early 1900s. How's everyone doing? You feeling good with where we are so far? It was really nice seeing everyone who came out to office hours yesterday. It's always a nice time, so don't hesitate to just drop in. I have 2 hours on Wednesday mornings, so come and drop by. Also, Tommy has office hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So it's a great opportunity to just talk to him. He's taken this class before and is very familiar with these things. So don't hesitate to ask him a bunch of questions. And then we have another undergraduate TA who is going to hold office hours, but we're still in the middle of scheduling those, so that'll all be available for you. So a couple of housekeeping things here at the beginning. First off, homework, let's see, 1.3 and 1.4 is due tomorrow evening. If you can't complete it by then, just send me an email. If you get the email to me, you get the automatic extension. I don't have to respond to it. So that would push your due date back till Monday. So if you feel like you don't have enough time. We're going to start taking attendance on Tuesday of next week. Like you can see in the syllabus, attendance is like a minuscule part of your final grade. This is just mostly so that I can know who's here and give you a little bit of extra just bonus for being here. It's like the 101st percent of your grade, so it's extra. You can still get 100% throughout the semester without the attendance component. It's just me being a little generous with the grade. So that's a little gift to you. Let's see. And then, so we have attendance, we have homework, and then we have the mini exam, which is a week and a half. So it's Tuesday, but not this Tuesday, but the one after. All right. Sound good? Okay, so we have a big one today. Unfortunately, I forgot to bring up a picture of Maxine, so you're gonna have to just hold out until Tuesday. I was out for a walk yesterday, and someone walking their dogs was like, "That's the most beautiful baby I've ever seen." I said, "I agree." Okay, so we're talking about panel data. What we've done so far, we've talked about cross-sectional data. We've talked about cross-sectional new categorical variables first. So we talked about how to, best practices for summarizing categorical variables. And then we talked about best practices for summarizing cross-sectional numerical variables, which was the histogram. But then last class, we introduced part 1.3 with time series, showing that histograms actually aren't always the right approach. Often we want something extra to give us the sort of relationship in sequence of data points. And so we introduced the line graph, and then we also talked about box plots a little bit as like a way of thinking about seasonality. So maybe there are sub-patterns within the broader pattern. So what we're doing today is going one step further. We're combining the variability within cross-sectional data with the time series variation in what we call panel data. So we have individual observations of, in our example, it's going to be coffee shops, but then we have time series variation within those, within the individual. And we're going to do this in two different ways. So that's where we're going. You can click on the interactive slides if you like, which has some code snippets, which we will be working with. And we're going to do this in two examples. All right, so panel data. The first one we're going to talk about, our first example, is with coffee shop transactions. So we're going to have 3 coffee shops, and we're going to record their transactions over the course of a couple of days and use this information to be helpful in thinking about where to hire a barista. So we know our coffee shops are understaffed, but we want to figure out, using this data, where should we hire? But panel data comes in 2 forms, 2 general forms. Sometimes we can think of like different forms of panel data, but mainly we think of panel data coming in long form or wide form. Long format is what you see here, where we have a column representing the individual. So in this case, that's the coffee shop. So we have our shop. And you can see, I mean, the first couple of rows here are just shop A. But as we go down the list, you would see shop B and shop C, which we'll get to in a second. But then we see the transaction ID and then the hours. And what this is telling us is essentially, we have time series data, right? It's individual time periods for each one of the coffee shop, but they're all stacked on top of each other. So we call this long format, where the panel nature is all sort of compressed into sort of long columns. The second type of data, second type of panel data, and we're going to work with this later in the class, is what we call wide format. So we have a bunch of countries. These are different country codes. And then we have coffee consumption per capita across a couple of years. We've actually worked with this data set already with box plots. What we can see here is we have individual columns representing separate time periods. So each column is a separate consumption level for that country in the row, but for a different year. So this first country we see has a coffee consumption per capita in 1999 of 8.4 kilograms per capita, and then has a separate coffee consumption per capita 20 years later. So instead of stacking our panel data like we did before in the long format, this type of panel data separates the time on the horizontal. So each column represents a different time period. These are 2 ways of working with panel data. Each have their pros and cons, and we're going to work with both of them today. And we'll think about some best practices for working with each. And then in part 2, we're going to work with transforming panel data between these different types. Panel data is just one of the more powerful data structures, and we're going to see why. So as always, we're going to walk through a bit of an example, and you're going to tell me your feelings and preferences for how we work with the data, and then we're going to try to land on best practices. Okay, so if you want to take a look at this data set, I've already given you a snapshot of what it looks like, but there's this data set, coffee sales receipts, which you can access right here. So coffee sales data, and you can click on this. I've given a source for it. And then for our exercise later in class, we're going to work with this data set. And we're going to do this both in Excel and in Python. So essentially our setup is we have this data set. So we have all of the transactions we've seen at this coffee chain. So we have 3 coffee shops. And we're thinking about where to hire a barista. We know we're understaffed a little bit, and we're thinking about which coffee shop and which time of day to hire for. So we're going to use this data set just to inform our decisions. Okay, so the first thing we might wonder is which coffee shop is the busiest. So if you're thinking about our data set, how might we answer this question using our data? Like, what visualization or summarization tool might we use? Yeah. A bar graph. And what would we do with a bar graph? Yeah, transactions per day. And we could just count them by shop. So we could see which shop has the most transactions. Hannah? Yeah, so Hannah's saying, look, this is what we might do. So transactions by shop, and then we have 3 shops, and then we're just counting the shops up. Okay. So nice. So if you're thinking about where to hire, this gives us at least some information, right? What else might we want to know? So we're thinking about which shift to hire for and which coffee shop to hire for which shift. So you're looking at this, you see coffee shop A. Should we hire for coffee shop A, or do we need more information to know which shift to hire for? Yeah, Alexis.
If you want to know by shift, you should break it down by like time of day, by like 2 hours or something.
Okay, so let's look at a histogram, like Alexis is saying. So we want time across the horizontal axis, and then we're just going to count the coffee shop, the transactions in each one of those bins. So I think this gives us a pretty good picture that shop A seems to have the most transactions, but we don't necessarily know that coffee shop A will have the busiest shift, even though it has the most coffee shop, the most transactions. Okay, so what time of day is the busiest is essentially what Alexis is helping us answer. So we could just create bins. I did this 1 hour bins, but you could do it with 2 if you like. Okay, so we know coffee shop A is the busiest. And from this graph, we can read that the morning, sort of like mid to late morning, tends to be the busiest. So you can see, like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. These are the busiest transactions for our copy chain. Okay, so we can use both of these tools, right? This is part 1.1 using bar graphs, 1.2 using histograms. But does this answer our fundamental question, which is, should we hire for the first the morning shift at coffee shop A, right? We know coffee shop A is the busiest, and we know the morning shift is the busiest. But does this tell us that we should hire for the morning shift at coffee shop A? How many of you think yes? We should hire for the morning at coffee shop A. It could be the right answer. How many of you think no? Someone represent this opinion. Why is this not enough information to know that morning shift at coffee shop A is the busiest? Yeah, Ruby.
Because like shop B might be busier in the morning, even though they have like more overall transactions in the day.
Yeah. So let's say sort of like what Ruby's saying. Like let's say coffee shop A has the most transactions, but what if a lot of them happen in the afternoon? And so they're sort of more spread out. But coffee shop B actually has a huge spike in the morning, and then not that many in the afternoon. Anyone else? I think this is the right idea. We have 2 pictures of the same piece of data. We have this sort of time series component, right? Transactions throughout the day. But then we also have this other component, which is the category, so the group within the time series. And simply knowing these two dimensions of the data separately does not give us the full picture. This is what panel data can do for us, is actually allow us to answer this more nuanced question. So what I'm going to do is actually plot, I'm going to break the histogram out by all three coffee shops. So we have 3 time series, 1 for each of the coffee shops. We're doing this with a histogram, and we can try to answer our question with this figure. So let's spend like 20 seconds here. I want you to try to answer our original question, which is, which coffee shop shift should we be hiring for? So which shift and at which coffee shop? There's enough information to answer it here. Take about 20 seconds, figure it out, and then check with your neighbor.
I'm sorry.
You're good.
There's absolutely nothing on my schedule.
Yeah.
I thought I could fit it in. Oh, it was I would have regretted it. No,
All right, someone help me out here. First question, which coffee shop shift should we be hiring for? Yeah. Okay, so morning at coffee shop C seems to have the highest peak. So if we're thinking about which coffee shop is most slammed, it's coffee shop C in the morning, which is almost exactly what Ruby was saying earlier. So how many of you agree with this assessment? And how many of you disagree? You can disagree. There are ways to disagree with this. Yeah. You disagree?
I disagree. Kind of. I mean, yeah.
Okay. And why would you disagree?
Because transactions doesn't. It's not necessarily enough information still. I mean, if we compared it to like a restaurant, like lunch transactions aren't necessarily the same as dinner transactions.
Yeah. So definitely. So one way this might not capture everything is, let's say afternoon, people actually ordered like 10 times as much per transaction. So if I order 10 lattes, that's way more in that one transaction than one drip coffee, right? The drip coffee takes no time for the barista to make, but the latte actually takes a minute. And if there are 10 of them, then that actually takes more time per order. So, and this picture doesn't capture that. So yeah, that would be one way that this doesn't actually tell the whole story. What are some others? Yeah.
Maybe if like shop C is the busiest, but like they're handling all the orders fine, but then shop B is less busy at that time, but they're
Yeah.
kind of like swamped.
Yeah.
Like even though they're less busy, they need more work.
Yeah, so let's say Shop C actually has like twice as many employees running during that shift. And twice as many employees as Shop A. They're actually not going to be swamped, even though they have more transactions. And this doesn't tell us how many people are already hired. So yeah, very nice. So, remind me of your name one more time. Matan. It's my guess, but yeah, what else?
I think it would be helpful to look at like how many cups are being sold like within each transaction, because each transaction can have more than one cup, and then find the rate per employee that's on shift at that time. Because I think finding the rate would help compare more relative to who's more small and who isn't.
Yeah, so there are a couple of things we could do here. One would be maybe instead of counting transactions, we could count transactions per employee, which would be one way of fixing this problem. And I think to go even one step further, we could do how many like items per employee, which may take this even further. So there are definitely ways to make this figure better, or this the communication of our data better. Yeah,
What
Ruby.
about like the experience of the employees would be like,
Okay.
someone can do, like make a copy paste of another.
Yeah.
So if like shop C has like a lot of like newbies, then
Yeah.
it could be like behind compared to like shop B or whatever, which have more experienced people.
Absolutely. So lots of dimensions of the real world are not being captured with this figure. And whenever we create a figure, we are necessarily simplifying the world. Like that's what our figures are doing. That's what our data is doing. Our data does not capture every dimension of the real world. And that's all right. This is giving us a picture. We can make our picture better in each of these different ways. But this is at least giving us some indication, and this indication is better than if we had just guessed. So whenever you're working with data, be thinking about the limitations like this. There are always going to be things that are not included, and in your final projects, or in your analysis, whatever you're doing, you want to be thinking about the limitations of what you've been able to summarize from a data set. What does the data set include? What does it not include? I ask you on homework often, what's the source of your data? How is the data collected? These questions are, as you can see, very relevant. And we have to be thinking about them. Good data work requires thinking critically about what's included in the data. Okay. So nice. So we can see coffee shop C has the highest transactions in the morning shift. It's the busiest shift. Do you all like this figure? Wow, I'm offended. I'm really not offended. Someone tell me why this figure is maybe troublesome. Yeah.
I feel like there's just too much going on here. It's like kind of hard to read the data at some points.
Yeah. Absolutely. This is not a great figure. Remind me of your name? Chase. Jason. I've called you Chase a couple of times. I'm sorry. There is a Chase. Chase. Is there not a Chase over here? No. I'm sorry.
I used to sit over there.
Oh, that's why. Okay, yeah. I can't keep track of everyone. I'm so sorry. So Jason's saying this is really busy, and it's difficult to see what's going on. Yeah.
I think it's, even though it's color-coded, it's hard to differentiate between the shops.
Yeah.
Definitely, because it's like the one bar has all the 3 shops in it, and
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to differentiate.
So look, we have this this brown bar, which is all 3 shops with transparency and slightly different colors. So you can see that it's all 3, but it's really difficult to know what's going on. And then we have this other color right here with 2 transparencies of 2 different colors. Really challenging to read. Remind me of your name. I'm sorry. Savi. Okay. Anyone have an idea for what we can do? How do we make this better? Yeah.
Make a line graph,
Okay. And what do we do with the line?
like have one line for each shop.
Okay. So draw a line over the histograms essentially at the different count values.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Yep.
I think we could take out certain hours that we know that they're not open, and also increase bin size. So, because I think it's relevant that we need every single hour.
Okay. So yeah, if we think there are too many intervals throughout the day, then maybe we get rid of we expand the bin. And if we're thinking about shift, it might even be better to use entire shifts as bins instead of each hour. Yeah, so that could be one way. Let's see, remind me of your name. Darren. And yours? Ava. Yeah, so let's use Ava's idea. I think Darren's idea could work. I just don't have it in the slides. But if we're thinking about shifts, that may actually be the right approach. Okay, so it does not show the data clearly. I think this is a much better figure. It's still, you can still make improvements here. Cutting out the closed hours, which I didn't do. So like no transactions happen at 2 a.m. So we could cut those out if we wanted to, but this is definitely at least an improvement. And here, I think it's, how many of you agree that this is easier to read? Nice. I agree with you. Do you see ways of improving this figure? Yeah, Matan.
Maybe you could, on the y-axis, put like the exact number of transactions, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so a vertical axis to give some indication of what the actual counts are. So with this question, I don't actually care so much about what the numbers are, but if you did, then this figure would not give you that information. And so you could add the y values to the counts. Yeah, what else? Yeah.
Well, we never really say when shifts are, so we could say which shift is where.
Yeah. So if we knew where the shift started and ended, then we could actually use Darren's idea of larger bins to be helpful there. Yeah, which I think would definitely improve the figure for the question at hand. Yeah, for sure. Remind me of your name? Maddie. I can make you one promise. I will not remember your names quickly. Okay, so this I think is a much better communication of the data for our question. And I think with every figure you'll ever see, except for the rare exceptions, you can think about ways of improving it. Here, you can improve this, and you can probably do better than I can. I challenge you to on your final projects. Make really good figures. So we have panel data using line graphs. We have, with this example, right, we have categorical data and we have numerical data, which give us two different views of the same data set, which can be helpful. Like if we're trying to figure out which copy shop is the busiest in total, a categorical variable does that for us, right? We just create a bin and then count up transactions by coffee shop. And then if we're thinking about just when do people buy the most coffee, we can see that using a histogram, just like we've done. But often with panel data, we want sort of the bigger picture. Time series data by category. And we can visualize that on one graph using a multi-line graph like we did. Okay, so this is a bit of the summary.